I killed her off. So Tomb Raider 5, we did the best job we could, but whether our hearts were in it or not, I'm not entirely certain.
By then, Lara was running out of breath. The franchise pushed the PlayStation 1 to its technical limits. Reviews and sales started to fall. Developers listened to fan feedback and began working on a brand new chapter in the story of Lara Croft, titled Tomb Raider, The Angel of Darkness. Little did they know what trouble was waiting around the corner. Gamers were still buying Lara Croft's adventures by the Jeeploads in 2001, but critics and fans agreed the series was losing its luster. With the release of the PlayStation 2, the Tomb Raider team decided to overhaul the game for next-generation consoles quickly.
The consensus was it needs to change. She needs to be able to talk to people, she needs to be harder edge, this whole list of stuff which we all sat around and we all bought into. But as that project went on, it was obvious we'd made it too big, and what we were trying to do was insane. I mean, just mad.
The time limit wasn't really enough. The team size wasn't enough. Missed loads of deadlines. Angel of Darkness was forced out before it was really ready.
In late 2003, the ambitious Tomb Raider, The Angel of Darkness was released worldwide, with some mixed results. Initial sales were strong thanks to an aggressive ad campaign, but critically, the game received lower scores for its glitchy graphics than awkward control scheme.
I don't think you'd ever get anybody else to admit to Angel of Darkness that it was their fault. Ultimately, it was my fault, and I paid for that with my job, which I'm very happy about that. But it was done by committee, so you live or die by the sword.
At the same time, players were migrating to newer action-adventure games. After The Angel of Darkness, Eidos made a tough decision.
Stop. We're going to have to take this way. We've got to sort of this Jewel in the Crown franchise. We've got to be seen to be making a new start. So they took it over and gave it to the Crystal Dynamics in the States.
In order to creatively jumpstart the series, developers at Crystal Dynamics knew they would have to make some big changes for Eidos, while staying true to the series' roots.
Coming back and starting to work on Tomb Raider Legend posed a number of challenges, because one of the biggest questions that were asked was, is the franchise still alive today? Is the consumer interested?
An old friend jumped in to help answer those questions. Toby Gard. Wiser from the experience of a decade earlier, Gard wanted to rekindle an old flame.
I wanted to get back involved because I felt like I could help to sort of guide the brand and guide Lara back in a sort of direction I thought that the original Tomb Raider was taking it.
With Toby's help, developers started the difficult task of reinventing the series. The overhaul began with the leading lady herself. For the newest game, the buxom booty hunter received a full body change.
I decided to sort of turn it on its head, how we were approaching the character design, which was to keep very, very caricatured proportions and shape, but then go for real realism in terms of muscle and bone structure and detail.
Next up, Crystal Dynamics made Lara's actions much more fluid, allowing killer combinations of moves. Like a pro gymnast, Lara could run, jump and flip through Legend's intricate tombs. The new environments were a huge draw for longtime fans. In April of 2006, Eidos released Tomb Raider Legend. In the opening scene, 9-year-old Lara was traveling with her mother when the plane crash-landed in the Himalayas. The Crofts stumbled on an ancient artifact, and Lara's mother accidentally got sucked into a bizarre time rift.
The concept is this plane crash that she suffered at a young age in the Himalayas and having to escape on her own, breaking her out of this sort of cozy lifestyle.
Critics loved the revamped control scheme and called it a true return to the series' roots. The changes paid off. Legends sold over 3 million copies worldwide, becoming the fastest-selling Tomb Raider game ever. Thanks to the daring facelift, the Tomb Raider series was back on track, and fans couldn't be happier.
We've just really scratched the surface of what you can do with Tomb Raider up until now, and so the future, it's just going to hold so much more.
If you thought a console could contain this virtual vixen, you're dead wrong. Lara Croft has a face that launched 1,000 products or more, and Tomb Raider is a multi-billion-dollar empire. Just think, 11 years ago, nobody ever heard of Lara. Then, in late 1996, her creator got a shock.
I remember going down to the game shop in the high street, standing in a queue and having people both ahead of me and behind me holding copies of the game and talking about how excited they were. And it was just this really strange feeling, realising that it actually was going to be majorly successful.
Toby's hard-nosed heroine was a hit. Shortly afterwards, Lara landed on the cover of Britain's The Face magazine, a spot typically reserved for real-life high-fashion trends.
That was the defining moment that made the statement that we had something that was truly going to become mass market and successful.
249 magazine covers later, Lara was a worldwide phenomenon, signing lucrative international deals.
You've got Tomb Raider scooters and Tomb Raider motorbike helmets. In France, Lara was made into a postage stamp. In Spain, she's been the face of SEAT. They had a whole series of advertising based around Lara.
For more than a decade, advertisers have sought a piece of Lara to help boost sales. But how does Eidos do this without selling out? That's where Janet Swallow comes in. As VP of licensing, she's called daily by folks looking to stamp Lara on anything, from lunch pails to garden hoses, pizzas to bedsheets. Rarely does a product make the cut.
Eidos as a company is very, very protective over Lara, so we're very careful with the merchandise that we choose. We've had 2 odd requests. One of them is a racehorse owner called to say could he call his racehorse after Lara, which we declined.
We were really worried that it would fall at the first hurdle, so we said that was no.
And the second one was a tulip grower in Holland to name one of their branded tulips after Lara, which I thought was quite nice.
While the official Lara tulip grows, other deals, such as Lara Croft knickers, wilt.
I think maybe because that's quite a hard act to follow, you know, to put on some underwear that's got Lara Croft on it with Lara's signature. I think it's a tough one. It was the weakest.
Comic book publisher Top Cow approached Eidos about serializing Lara's adventures in a monthly comic title. Eidos loved the idea, and the series ran for 5 straight years. That same year, in Pages of Another Kind, Lara Croft model Nell McAndrew posed for Playboy in the controversial spread Lara Croft Nude. Eidos pulled the trigger on a lawsuit, forcing Playboy to pull those copies from shelves and alter the cover. Perhaps the strongest deal in the history of the franchise went down in 2001. Lara Croft had all but conquered the game world. So, what's a young woman to do? Simple. Head to Hollywood. But first, film producer Lloyd Levin had to convince studio execs to take a little gamble on Lara.
There was very little awareness within the movie industry about the potential of video games. When we were submitting the property to studios, there were a number of cases where we had to submit PlayStation consoles so they could play the game.
Video games didn't have a great history of silver screen iterations. Box office busts like Super Mario Bros. Turned off much of the game-based film viewing public.
It was somehow assumed that it just wouldn't work. We never had any doubt, and we knew that it was a great opportunity to actually do something that was a little bit unprecedented.
Paramount took a swing at the pitch and hit a grand slam. With heavy hitter Angelina Jolie filling Lara's boots, Tomb Raider 1 grossed almost $50 million opening weekend, $300 million total. The film eclipsed Alien as the highest moneymaker with a female lead. A second Tomb Raider followed in 2003, and buzz about a third movie can now be heard worldwide. Looking ahead, there's sure to be plenty more Lara coming your way. From an animated series to a theme park, the whole world is still Croft crazy.
The fact that she's 10 years old in game is quite a long time. So I think she's a digital icon for computer games, not just for now, but forevermore. Rather like James Bond has survived 40 years in the movie industry, Lara Croft is the digital icon of the computer games world.